Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on Unlocking Profit Potential, a ROI webinar for therapy businesses. So this session is designed to explore what return on investment ROI is, how to quantify it, and what that means for you and your business. So here at PhysEquip, we work to support clinicians and businesses with investments into medical technologies. We provide education opportunities and finding business solutions that best suit you. So from someone with extensive experience in the industry, both clinically and in supporting business, we have today PhysEquip's own head of business development, may I add, Dominic Smith, who will be presenting for us and completing a short Q&A. So we will be answering some of your pre-submitted questions that we've received, but for those who have managed to join the session live, then please feel free to submit those into the Q&A tab and we can get round to those as well. So I'm going to hand over to Dom now for the presentation.
Thank you very much, Katie. And thanks for those joining us at this lunchtime. A bit of forewarning, there will be maths, there will be numbers. Hopefully it's not too heavy. I've kind of kept it as simpler numbers as I possibly can. But hopefully it will give you a bit of an idea of how we can work on ROI in practice. So to give you a bit of background for those who don't know me, I am Dominic, or Dom for short, it's fine. I've been a part of PhysEquip now 9.5 years. Actually, it's come 10 years in July, would you know, Katie? So, and I started off as a clinical specialist. I'm a sport exercise therapist by background and have since moved into that business development side of things, primarily because the strategies that we've put together has allowed us to 4x and plan on a 6 times revenue increase or turnover increase at the end of this year. So within 4 years, we've increased our revenue by 6 times since 2020, since we had a reset. So, and a massive part of that has been all the people that we've worked with. I've had the pleasure of working now with, I mean, crikey, hundreds of clinicians, and some people are on today around the country across a multitude of backgrounds, of areas with different products. And one of the big things is, we always kind of face is, how can I make this work financially? Clinically, obviously, is the big obvious one, is how does it work from a clinical perspective, especially for private businesses, how does it work financially, how can I make? So that's where my kind of role has evolved quite a bit as well, is a consult with a few, I say consult, I do that in with the Air Bunnies, with clinics on how they can implement new technologies and ultimately cover their costs. I'm a Yorkshireman by background, so spending money is not what I like to do. I like to get the most value out of my money in personal and professional life. So I'm always treating it as though it is, if I'm working with a client, it's my money that I'm spending essentially. So I'd always do it like that. So let's get into it in terms of what we'll learn over the next, hopefully 25 minutes, half an hour. We're going to hopefully understand what ROI means, its definition, the importance, and how to quantify that as well. Looking at pre-investment planning, the key factors that you'd need to identify, potentially looking at contingency plans if the investment doesn't quite go to plan. And then lastly, like how you would make a strategic financial decision. So breaking down these figures, looking at different timescales, how to minimize the risk and maximize the potential return. So return on investment, what does that actually even mean? So from a definition perspective, ROI is a measure that you would evaluate the profitability of an investment that you've made. And the purpose for looking at ROI is to determine what you essentially get for your money and whether the investment was actually worth it. Now, ROI means different things to different people. So one of the questions I'd ask people is what would you define as ROI? Like, we have a dictionary definition, great, but for each individual businesses, what do they qualify as a return on their investment? Can you quantify it? But also, what does that investment involve? Obviously, there's going to be a money constraint to it, but let's not forget about time of implementation and other aspects as well. It might involve other people. It might involve legislation things and paperwork and God knows what else that can come along with these investments. So it's really important that you know the full ins and outs of what can lead to when you're making the investment. And then we have to look at that investment over time. So we're going to make an initial payment or initial investment in a product or service, and how is that going to look over time? We do have a monetary ROI, so that's a direct financial return from the investment. We have a non-monetary ROI, so that could be improvements in your time efficiency within your clinic, could be a better branding if you're looking at marketing, investing in your marketing. You could be looking at enhanced patient experience. There's a whole multitude of things that might not actually contribute to a direct financial return, but there could be other things that help there. So a nice example is if you're going to invest in something like diagnostic ultrasound equipment and your training, that's going to help reduce diagnostic time, make sure you get a better diagnosis quicker. By that, it means you're going to get more appointments because you're offering a better service, because better patient satisfaction is much higher as well, and ultimately you're getting patients better, faster. So that's kind of like, and you can get a monetary ROI from that as well, but from patient satisfaction and being able to offer more appointments as well. So in terms of like why we and what PhysiQuip do and how we go about our business is when we're looking at looking at new products, new services, we do quite a lot of diligence. So we've just launched a new product, the Strength by Numbers Axit kit. I mean, Kate, was involved in that. I think it took us about 8-9 months of diligence of looking at the market and what potential ROI is there as well. And we also actually ask you as our clients, what is important to you? And over the last 10 years, we've got around just over 1,000 data points. And this is you and your colleagues telling us what the biggest challenges that you face in investing in new equipment and new services. Number one, shocker, budget. Budget is always going to be, there's always going to be a financial element to many investments. Second biggest one is changing your practice. So if you're bringing in a new technology or a new system, then you have to change the way you're doing things. And there can be reluctance or resistance to change. Training competency is a massive one as well that keeps coming up. So Katie, part of the PhysiQuip Academy that we are here today, we're expanding that as well. And I think there needs to be more pressure put on the companies to provide better training and competency for you. Now, understanding ROI is actually quite far down the list. However, it's still quite a big thing. Now we work across the NHS and elite sport, but for private practice, that 16% is about 90% of the private practices. So out of the whole 1,000, we work across a multitude of spaces. But there's a lot of people in private practice who really don't understand how to generate an ROI. Other things that can prevent you from investing, this is the feedback that we've had, is that there's a lack of evidence. I say evidence like this as well, because what does that mean? Is it, we're looking at safety and efficacy with literatures and things like that. It's basically you want to know, is that piece of equipment actually going to work fundamentally? Also, there's not enough social proof. This machine could be something that nobody else uses, so it's quite high risk in that sense because there's nobody else that that uses that bit of kit. So you might make the decision to wait and see what other people do and how other people implement it, which is totally fine. A bit of equipment or a new software might not fit your ethos or a way of working. Again, totally fine. Other things, there could be too much choice. We go to Medica. If you don't know Medica, it's a massive trade show in Dusseldorf in Germany, and it's for manufacturers and distributors to meet. And there are, I think when I was there, it was about 14 or 16 hangars. They're an absolutely massive show, and there's loads of technology. So there's just so much choice, and it can be quite overwhelming. But then the other one that's really interesting is bad experiences. I think we've all been there, whether it's in the medical world or in your personal lives. An investment not living up to the expectation, how it was sold from the rep. And that then leads to a lack of trust in the companies and the people that you speak to. So that can form a little bit of reluctance and apprehension about making investments as well. But now let's look at why people actually invest. And again, this is around about 1,000 bits of data feedback from our database. Attracting new customers and improving patient outcomes. Was really pleased to see that improving patient outcomes was really, really high up there. I thought it was going to be higher, actually, like sort of 80 to 90%. I'm going to give people the benefit of the doubt that they only ticked one instead of it was a multiple choice thing. But yeah, upgrading technology, generating income's quite high as well. Also, we're obviously working a lot in that private sector. Innovation and creating a unique selling point also quite high up there. One thing that I was quite surprised that was investing in staff. I don't think very many people really consider the staff. And if you're a single practitioner, that's investing in yourself as well. You're very important. There's Johns Hopkins Hospital that we work with in the States. One of their biggest things is investing in the staff and staff retention. And a big thing about that is looking at investing in new technology all the time to keep the staff. Obviously, the stuff that's going to be impactful to their daily work. But when they see a company or a clinic that's investing in them as staff members, it gives people more of an incentive to stay. Obviously, some of the reasons there, but it's really interesting in terms of that data that we've had back from our clients in the UK. So let's move on to costs and looking at your business and how we could be looking at ROI specifically to you. So the question I ask is, do you know how much it costs for you to run your business? And that would be per year, per month, per week, per hour. And if you've got multiple rooms, do you know how much it costs per room? And then on the flip side, do you know how much you could be making per year, month, week, hour, or room? And I like to break things down into hours, and we'll go down into that in a second. But what we're going to look at is how we can break it down. Now, this is an example. It's not a particular clinic in any way. I just try to put some simple numbers together that's as representative as possible. So what we've done is we've looked at what the outgoings are, and then we total that up. So every year, £184,000 is being spent to run this business. And then we look at how much revenue generating time this business has available to them. So we look at the weeks worked per year, so 46 weeks. So this place might have a nice 6-week holiday every year. They work 5 days per week. It's open 8 hours a day, and they have 3 rooms within their clinic that could be generating revenue. That £184,000 per year going out would break down to £4,000 a week, £800 a day, £100 per hour, but £33.33 per room per hour. So now when we look at our revenue generating hours per day, we have 8 hours a day with 3 rooms. That's 24 hours a day that we could be generating revenue. That's 120 hours a week, 460 a month, 5,520 hours per year we could be generating revenue. So again, breaking down into the cost per room per day, per room per week, per room per month, and per room per year as well. You can see how that breaks down. Now, if I take an income estimation, and let's say that our average hourly income is £60 per hour. So across the 3 rooms, our maximum potential per hour is £180. Taking into account our outgoings per room and our hourly outgoings, the profit potential of this business could be up to £147,000 a year. That's if every hour is booked up, every waking hour that this clinic is running is booked up, and we are consistently taking £60 an hour. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of you can break all this stuff down. We do have this on an Excel spreadsheet, so we do play around with the numbers depending on you as the business, and we can really break it down and to help you really understand the costs and the potential revenue of your business. But one of the fundamental things is people look at is they're looking at money. I look at time. We're a time-based business. When we used to work in the clinic, when we had our clinic in Manchester, you know, it was the amount of hours per day. So if one of the easiest, I say easiest, again, I'm loving my air bunnies today, by the way. One of the easiest things we could do is work more hours. If you're only open 5 hours a day, you can open another 3 hours, so 8 hours a day. Now, granted, you do have to fill those hours up and make sure that we have patience for that. Another way to do it is add a new member of staff, another 10, 15, 20 hours, 30 hours a week. And we talk about this a lot on our side of things, is that we're talking about potentially getting new members of staff in. what does that give us? What's our ROI? And we don't literally look at the financial ROI that person would bring. It's the time. I'm always thinking, if we could hire somebody that gets me 30 hours a week, I mean, Katie might nod at this. Imagine what you could do with another 30 hours a week, Katie? I know what I could do with another 30 hours a week. And it's really, really important. It's that we're time restricted in many ways. So it's really important for you as a business owner to understand how much time you can actually bill for, how many time per day, per week, per month, per year that you've got that you could be billing for. And then also look at how that hour is broken down in terms of your costs. And can you increase the amount that you charge per hour or decrease the amount it costs? Understandably, there are some costs that you're just going to have to pay: rent, insurance, wages, and other bits and bobs that just kind of come as part of the business. But there might be some areas that you can cut down on, negotiate on, or whichever else. So that's time to invest. It's my favorite segue. It's honestly, I'm really pleased with that one. So we're going to look at how we actually look at investing in something. And we've got a couple of choices. You're going to buy something outright or you're going to lease it. And we're going to look at the pros and cons of the different options that you've got. So we're going to keep the numbers nice and round, nice and easy. So you could outright purchase £10,000, or you could lease or rent a machine or a service. Now that can spread the cost over time. Both of those have an impact on your cash flow, and it depends on what you would like to do. And an exercise to do when you're looking at any investment is to calculate what is the most feasible option for you. Now, at this point, people can debate what's preferable for you. Now, I am in the camp of the finance. Let's take, for example, I have £10,000 cash savings sat in the bank, and my machine is going to cost me £10,000. I could buy it outright. Excellent, brilliant, done. What happens if something goes wrong? I've got no cash in the bank left. So I could potentially be snookered at that point. Now, if I can go to a bank or a lender and say, can I borrow £10,000, please, to buy a machine? They go, yeah, absolutely no problem. Now I'm going to pay a little bit more back to them. However, I can use their £10,000 plus my £10,000. I use their money, keep mine, and I'm using their money to generate me income. And let's say in 2 years' time, not only have I paid off the machine, £10,000, that machine has generated me another £10,000 in profit. So not only have I got £10,000 in my savings, I've got £10,000 extra profit that I can slap into there. I've got 20 grand and I use somebody else's money to do it. So it's a really nice thing. What big businesses do is they use other people's money to try and generate revenue. Again, it's all personal preference. There are tax benefits to both options, which we'll run into as well. But really, really do consider all the different options to you. And just to break down pros and cons between purchasing outright, leasing, or renting. You purchase outright, you get full ownership of the asset immediately. It's yours, it goes against your business. It's a great asset for your business. There's no real huge ongoing payments. You might have to pay servicing or some consumables, but other to that, with the kit, that's it, it's yours. You also do get depreciation benefits, tax benefits and tax deductions. I don't know the full ins and outs of that, so speak to your accountants on that one, but there could be tax benefits as well. Cons, though, there's a high upfront cost, and it can put a strain on your cash flow, having a big lump sum going out of your business. You will have the responsibility of maintenance, and all those costs will be on you. And you will have the depreciation potential, so you have a loss of value on the equipment as well. Now, leasing, on the other hand, positives: low upfront costs, easier initial payments. It's predictable payments set every month, so it's really easy to budget for. You can get access to upgrades. There are options that where after like I say, a 3 or 4 year lease, you might be able to send the machine back and get a brand new machine on a new leasing finance plan. And again, you get some tax benefits through that as well with offsetting on there. Again, speak to your accountant. The cons, though, is you're going to get a higher long-term cost. You're going to have to pay interest across that. There's no ownership necessarily. You may have an option at the end of the lease package that you'll pay a small balloon payment and then you can own the asset. So it can be a great route to owning the asset. However, it will cost you more to do that. You are locked into a payment plan, and quite often to get out of these finance plans is to settle the entire amount. So even if after 12 months on a 4 year lease, the only way to get out of it is to settle the rest, which can cost you quite a lot. And obviously you're going to have maintenance clauses in there as well. So these finance partners or lenders will regulate and say that you have to do X amount of services per year, which you'll be responsible for paying. Lastly, rentals. So the pros for that, really flexible. It's easy to get return and easy to change. Also easy to return a device and easy to change any rental agreements. No maintenance costs. Typically with a rental agreement, the supplier will cover the maintenance costs as part of the package. You won't get any depreciation loss either, or loss of value. The manufacturer, the supplier picks up that tab. And there's a lower initial expense as well. So it's an outlay. And again, you get to spread the cost better for your cash flow too. Cons, it will cost more than a finance deal. It just will. It could be 2 or even 3 times the price of doing a finance plan. You don't ever own the machine or the service or the technology in any way. So you won't get any equity on your business. It's just a constant flow of cash out of your business. Availability issues, so equipment might not always be available to you as well for rentals. And you might have usage restrictions as well. So some suppliers might actually restrict how often you could use the equipment as well. Now, just a little plug in this. Obviously, we've got the rent to learn option with the Alpinion. One of the things we actually do is give you the option to buy. So in some rental agreements, they might carry forward some of the rent that you've paid into buying the machine that you're renting. So there might be options there as well. So it could be a route to purchasing, but again, it will probably cost you a bit more. So we run through that. We're going to have a look at calculating an ROI on an outright purchase. So if you've got your coffees, just take a deep breath. We're going to go through some numbers now. Oh, okay, right. So scenario, our current cost per hour, so our outgoings is £30 and our current charge is 60. See, I told you I was going to make it easy round numbers. Our investment cost is £10,000 and our device guarantee period is 2 years. And we have a total hours open per year, 5,520. Now, why have I put a device guarantee in 2 years? Sometimes the way I work is if my machine is going to be guaranteed to work, the supplier guarantees me it's going to work for 2 years and they'll cover any costs as long as I haven't neglected the machine in any way. I'm thinking, okay, how can I make that £10,000 back within that 2-year period? So if you're making an outright purchase, it could be a year, 2 years, 3 years. What's the time scale that you want to put to making that money back? And then breaking it down a cost of how much it's going to cost you per hour, really looking at that hourly cost. So as an example, we do a calculation across 2 years, we're looking at just over 11,000 hours of working or billable hours that we could be working, which works out at 91 pence per hour. Okay, so across those 2 years, you've got a decision to make. So your new overhead goes from £30 to £30.91. So for a £10,000 investment, if you buy it outright across 2 years, when it's spread, it's not too much. So you've got a couple of considerations. Can you absorb that initial additional 91 pence per hour? If you can absorb it, fantastic. And you know that after 2 years, you pretty much, the machine's being covered. Do you need to increase your hourly charge though? Could you maybe increase your prices from £60 an hour to £62 an hour, £61 an hour? So that you know in 2 years' time, I keep saying 10 years, in 2 years' time, that extra pound that you charge is going to pay for your machine, and then it becomes essentially zero on your books, paid for, and it's now a really good asset for your business. Okay, so that's one way of looking at it from an outright purchase. You could lease or rent the machine. So how is this going to work? So let's have a look at the scenario. We see around about 30 patients per week, and we work 46 weeks per year. And the cost of our lease or our rent is going to cost us £300. I'm doing this as including VAT. So let's just say it's £300 all in. The patients per month, 30 patients divided by the amount of weeks, we're seeing approximately 115 patients a month. So if I take my £300, divide it by the 115, I'm looking at an additional cost of £2.60 per patient. So again, your considerations are, can you absorb that £2.60 each month? And you just know that you can absorb it into your hourly rate. Or do you need to increase your price by £2.60 to cover that lease cost every month consistently? Now, I know at some point, we might be thinking we could be charging extra for this, but we'll get on to how the generating revenue side of things This is really your contingency plan. If you're making this investment, it's understanding what that new cost is going to be to your business and how can you actually cover and absorb it, or do you need to actually increase your prices to be able to cover it? Now, if we're having a look at a cost per treatment with consumables, so let's say, and this is looking now at lifetime costs, so we'll touch on this in a second. It's not just a £10,000 investment now. You're going to, in this scenario, your device is going to cost £10,000, and let's say you're going to get 1,000 treatments out of this machine until you need to replace a component. And that replacement component is going to cost you £1,000, say. But for now, let's say a cost per treatment, £10,000 divided by the 1,000 treatments. So £10 a treatment. I told you, nice easy numbers. We'll keep this nice and simple. So in terms of an example, we've got to factor in that £10 cost per treatment. So then we have to make a decision on pricing strategy. Do we need to increase our hourly rates across the board? So increase it from 60 to £70 an hour to make sure that we cover that. Do we need to add a supplementary fee for the special treatment? So if we know that it's going to cost us £10 every time we turn that machine on to do a treatment, do we charge our patients that £10? Do we charge them £20 and make a 50% margin on it? Could we offer a package pricing for multiple sessions? We know that it's going to, let's say we need to do 3 sessions with the patient and it's going to cost us £30 to do that. We could look at a package of treatment where it works out at £70 an hour instead of £60 an hour. There's all different choices, and it doesn't have to necessarily be per hour. We can be smart about this. A 30-minute treatment, we could do 3 30-minute treatments at £40 per treatment. So for 120. So now our hourly rate has gone from £60 to £80. So we can actually do things like that as well. And it's increasing the amount of revenue that we can charge within that hour time frame. The other thing you could do is you could implement a premium pricing for this specific treatment. So, laser is a good example. You could say, well, you can come in for a standard treatment, which is £60 an hour, or if you want a laser treatment, it's going to cost you £200. So you could often offer things like that as well. It all depends on what you want to do with your business. Oh, there you go. There's a new pricing example for you. I've kind of skipped that a little bit. So here's the bit that burns your money, the running costs and the consumables. It is really important that you ask these questions and you find out exactly what the running costs are for that machine. The example that I give people is you're not going to go and buy a car or buy a house without knowing what the running costs are going to be. If you take a house, for example, what's the gas bill, electricity bill, what potentially is the internet going to cost, what's your council tax going to be, are there any leasehold prices things you need to pay as well, what's the mortgage price going to be, all those different things you need to factor in. Yes, we can afford the house initially, but if we can't afford the monthly payments, then there's no point in getting it. It's exactly the same with these machines. And frankly, a little bit of a controversial statement, I've made it before, I'll make it again. If you do not ask the sales reps this question, I'm not saying this for everybody, every sales rep, because there's some good ones out there. Sometimes if you don't ask these questions, they won't tell you. So if you don't ask what the servicing is per year, there's possibly the chance that they won't disclose it to you, and it could be a little bit of a surprise later down the line. So make sure that you've got a set bunch of questions that you can go through so you fully understand all the costs associated to it, and especially around servicing as well. Call out fees, that's another thing. It can be a bit of a hidden cost, but also some replacement components. There might be certain aspects that you need to double check, especially if you're comparing different brands, different makes, different models across different companies. Have set questions so you can make a fair assessment across the board, because it can have an impact. So again, we look at that cost of a machine, £10,000. Your annual service is going to cost you £1,000. A consumable cost is £1,000 every 300 treatments, and your estimated treatments per year is going to be 600. Now, the lifetime expectation of the equipment, we just put an example as 5 years. So that gives you a total lifetime cost of this device of £25,000. And this is where I work with several clinics who don't realise this. They're like, why am I not making money out of this bit of kit? It only cost me £10,000 initially, but it's because they're paying £3,000 a year, £4,000 a year to run the thing, and because they didn't ask these questions beforehand. So it's really important. I can't stress enough. Make sure you know what the running costs are before you put pen to paper and transferring money across. Let's get on to the generating revenue side of things. Last few slides, and then we'll get into a bit of Q&A. So this is how we could look at what profit we could make. We've hopefully got a good understanding of what our costs could be and looking at it from the hourly perspective. So let's look at what we could make. When it comes to this age-old question, price, value, which one do you want to go by? So in terms of what you're doing for your business, it's going to vary on a few things. There's no one size fits all or silver bullet. How many more cliches can I get in? There's nothing that's going to be one, it's not going to fit. What works for somebody else is not necessarily going to work for you. It depends on a few things. Geography, where you're located. London's very different to Stoke. Your patient demographic as well. What your patients like in terms of their affluency in that area as well. What other service you can offer, what you already offer within the business, how is this new product or service going to impact what you currently do? But also, most importantly, what is your current business or pricing model? There might be machines or there might be technologies or services that can come in that is a completely different model to how you currently work. So do you have to rework your entire model, or do you have to try and make a square peg fit around a hole? There's many other variables as well, and it just means that you've got to put a bit of dedicated headspace to kind of figure out what's the best thing to go forward. But let's have a look at the price options that we can get. So we can increase our prices across the board. We've already touched on this. So everything you do, initial assessments, follow-ups, specific treatments, you might increase everything by £1 or £2 to cover your new overhead. You could do a supplementary fee for this new treatment that you're bringing in. So you're charging £60 an hour. If they want, I'll use Shockwave as an example. If they want Shockwave as a treatment, you charge them an extra £20 on top of that £60. You could do packaging prices, which we've already touched on as well, but really thinking about how that's going to in fact impact your hourly income. Or you could look at that premium pricing, or as some have called it, reassuringly expensive or expensively reassuring, which one of the two? One of those ones. So where you just basically you charge considerably more than everything else, and people go, well, it must be good if it's that much. So there's a couple of options for you there as well. Now, also, it depends on what you're wanting to do as a business. We speak to some people who like this holistic approach. So if you bring in, and I'll just use Shockwave again, because it's one of the areas that I predominantly work with, they want to offer Shockwave regardless of who comes in. So they're going to, this patient would pay a set amount per hour, per half an hour, whatever it is. If they need Shockwave to get it, there's no extra price for it. So that you need, basically, for those people, you need to consider what your new overhead is, and they're making the decision to absorb the cost of that machine. If you wanted to look at a value-added service, that's potentially looking at an additional fee, but only when that device is used. So again, if I take the Shockwave, for example, it's just that supplementary cost on top of things. You're giving the patients the option. The key here is to make it as accessible and affordable to as many people as you possibly can. If you have 10 people that are indicated for Shockwave therapy, if you price it too high, only 3 people out of those 10 could afford it. If you price it at a nice rate, you want to try and get 8, 9, even 10 out of 10 people paying for it. And it's about volume, especially with the supplementary side of things as well. And there's also marketing acceptance. You need to ensure that your pricing strategy aligns with what your patients expect already and what sits with the market rate. So have a look at what competitors are doing. I wouldn't necessarily be too concentrated on what other people are doing. Really value what you're doing and really listen to your patients. But once you set these prices, really believe that that's the thing. That's one of the biggest things that often sells it, is you, the individual. It's the value that you're bringing to that time with the patient. So a few things to think about on that front. So overall, a few take-home points for you. So when you're looking at your business, if it's a good exercise, if you haven't done it already or you haven't done it in a while, is really keep your finger on the pulse and evaluate your overheads. Really understand what is going out. And I like to break it down per hour. Personally, that's how I like to do it. It's what we're spending per hour. And really understand how the new investment could impact those costs as well. Do you need to look at adjusting your prices? So you've got to determine whether you need to adjust those prices to cover the cost of a new investment. Any strategic decisions you need to make. So what's the pricing strategy that you're going to look at? How are you going to present this to the market? And how is it going to meet your patients' needs, but ultimately support and help your business grow? And then ultimately as well, is you've got to monitor that return on investment as well. So if you've got billing things, is how can you have a separate code that you can look at how that particular service or particular product is generating revenue outside of what you're currently doing, so you can actually have a look at its ROI from an objective standpoint. So there's multi-levels to this ROI side of things. I'm happy to talk through people. I talk things through with businesses just to help where you understand where these things could sit. And I do like to try and keep it as simple as possible. I do understand that there is multiple levels to a lot of these things, but I'm a big believer in just what's that analogy? Keep it simple, stupid. You can overcomplicate these things very, very quickly, and I think it's just boiling it down, making it nice and easy, so that you can make a clear, educated, and informed decision. So I will wrap up there, Katie, and we'll go into the Q&A.
Perfect. Thanks, Dom. No, that was great. Really valuable content. So yeah, as you said, we'll go through some pre-submitted, and then if the guys on the session, if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop those in the Q&A as well, and we can go through those. So yeah, I really enjoyed the first pre-submitted question we got actually, which was, what's the secret? And actually, reviewing the content, there isn't really a secret, is there? I guess, it's very much, like I say, keeping it simple, breaking it down for businesses to just, sit down, understand, their own model, their own costs, their own income potential, and then what does ROI mean to them? And you go on that process, like you were saying.
Yeah, it's exactly that. And the thing is as well, it's like a lot of these suppliers and businesses will have their own interpretation on how it could work. I'd like to think that we're a little bit different, is that we try and understand other people's businesses. I've seen and read many websites where it's like, if you charge this much, you could make £500,000. And you're like, shut up.
Yeah.
It's not true, and it's just like there's nothing really specific with what they're doing. So what we like to try and do is really get down and understand the challenges that our clients are facing, and sometimes that the investment doesn't work right now. But I mean, I say what's the secret? Genuinely, it's like keep it simple.
Yeah.
For me, it's really understanding, and I do see a few times epiphany moments, and it was for me as well, is when you go, well, we keep looking at money. It's not money necessarily. It is, right? It's time. We're not Amazon. Amazon runs 24/7. We're not that. They're generating all the time. We're only open for what, 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, maybe. And we're limited by that. Our patients are limited by the time they've got as well. So it's really getting down to understanding how much time are you open and able to generate revenue. The more time that you're available, in theory, the more money you could make. Obviously, as I mentioned before, you've got to make the appointments, but it's just understanding, really, really breaking down how much it's costing you per hour. If you've got multiple rooms, how much it's costing you per hour per room, and really break it down. I get things fluctuate, consumables, they go up and down, all these things fluctuate, but it's really trying to give you, at least that's why I put it as estimates even. But yeah, it's that, and I think the other thing as well is that you get these things of like you get the impression you might have to charge an arm and a leg to make money back. I give Shockwave as a really good example. You might get, I kind of alluded to it, is like for £10,000, you might get 1,000 treatments out of that. It's going to cost you £10 a treatment. So every time you turn that machine on and treat somebody, it costs you a tenner. The minimum you would have to charge a patient extra is £10, and you'll make that money back by the time those 1,000 treatments are up, and that you're going to need to pay for a consumable component, usually one of the revision kits. So that's the nice, easy way of just thinking, I want to cover my cost by the time I need to pay for something new. If I'm only charging 20 quid, I'm making 50% margin on that. I'm making £10 every time. And if I've got 1,000 treatments and I'm making £10 every time, 10 grand cash profit on top of what I'm already making. So they're nice ROIs, and you're not having to charge loads for it. And I've done this with 3 or 4 clinics now. One clinic charged a supplement with the Focus Shockwave. They've now got 3 machines. These are £25,000 machines. One machine in about 2.5, 3 years has paid for 2 more. There's another chap who got a radial shockwave. It paid for a new clinic within 12 months, and they're not charging loads. They're charging 20, £30 supplement fees on them. It's you don't have to charge loads for these things. And it was the key for them was they understood how much it was going to cost them, and
Yeah.
they could build the margin off the back of that.
Yeah. And do you think it would be good for people to like segment it a little bit to try not get so overwhelmed, like say, because it can be quite complex when you look at all the, like say what, your extra add-on costs per patient, etc. But if, you just look at the investment cost and how much it's going to take for you to pay that back, and then you start a different model, right? Okay, now I'm in my in like revenue building like sort of section, and then like how am I going to now like remodel for sort of generation of like the revenue, if you will. So I guess it's just trying to sort of like separate it a little bit as well.
Yeah, you can separate it, and when you're breaking these things down, I wouldn't go down to the nth degree.
Yeah.
It's just like go consumables, and some of those things you're not going to be absolutely on the nose with it. I mean, when I figured out my house bills, I was like, okay, my gas bill's £50 a month. It's not, but I'm giving you an example. I'd say like my gas bill is really £50 a month. I'll overegg it and say it's 80 because during winter it goes
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Electricity, the same thing. My estimate might be £35 a month, but I'm going to say now it's going to be 70. Like I just build in huge contingencies, and just make an assumption that it's actually going to cost me maybe 10-20% more than what the estimate that I've put down. So I like to try and build in things like that because ultimately, if you've over-egged your cost and it ends up at the end of the year that it was less than that, brilliant, you're even more in the green. So there's quite a few different aspects, and again, it's like fitting it into your business model. But one of the things when you're looking at an investment is my first question is like, how can we pay that off, and
Yeah.
when buy?
Yeah.
Very worst case scenario, I can at least pay the machine off. If it didn't work, then okay, at least we've given it a go. I did as much diligence as I could, and it hasn't worked. Okay, fine. But how can I do it? And I want to put a time scale to it. I want to, whatever it is that you decide. Once I've paid the machine off, in theory, let's say if you're charging a supplementary fee, we'll use the shockwave analogy again, it's costing you £10 per treatment, and you're charging £20 as supplement on top of what you already charge. So just to keep it easy, £10 profit each time. Once I've paid that machine off, I still charge a £20 supplement. My cost is no longer £10 per treatment. It's down. It goes right down. I think the revision kit, I mean, for us anyway, the revision kits are about £400, and you get about 800 treatments out of it. So it's 50p per treatment. So like all of a sudden your cost has gone from 10 quid to 50p. And instead of making £10 profit, you're now making £19.50. And I know there's a crude kind of like looks at it, but he's like, I say it's that, and people are quite disbelieving of it. We've worked with half a dozen clinics now that have made it a reality, and they've gone, actually, that's worked. And it did make them more money than they realized it could by not charging 70-80 pound for a shockwave treatment per se.
Yeah. Do you think there's a stigma about discussing ROI within healthcare?
Yes, and it was described. I'll tell you what, it was described to me by a colleague over in the States, Waldo Vasquez. If you ever watch this, Waldo, he's a guy from the States, works with BTE, and he described it to me. It's a customer mindset. It's a cultural mindset, because in the UK we have the NHS. Our mindset is that we are users of healthcare, so our expectation isn't very high. It has to just meet a certain level. I was seen within a certain period of time. I got some instructions and away I went. In the States, because they're purely private, they have a consumer mindset. And that consumer mindset has I want to get the most out of my money, and it drives everything up in terms of quality, and it drives people to make investments and improve things. And I think that comes down to when you're in the user mindset, not only is our patient in the user mindset here in the UK, the clinician is as well. And I'm sure there's plenty of clinicians, might be people watching this back, that can feel reluctant. I know I did. I don't know how you felt, Katie, when you were working at clinic, when it's like you've done your treatment, you go, £50, please. You kind of feel like, I want a receptionist. I want a receptionist to deal with that. So I think there's a reluctance to that, and I think there's a reluctance as well to value ourselves and value the services that we provide. I think there's plenty of people that I've met, very, very good clinicians, that seriously undervalue themselves,
Mm.
and don't really believe in how good they are as well. On the flip side, you can get some not so good people who think they're miles better than they are and
Yeah.
really overcharge for it, but they do well because they're so confident.
Mm.
Um, so is there a stigma? I think yes. Because with this, we're just a user-based mindset, and paying for healthcare, it's growing for sure. The
Yeah.
private sector is growing, and that's a rabbit hole we won't go down in terms of the state of the NHS. But I think there's many of us that are still in that kind of mindset of asking people for money, charging people for their health is still a bit alien.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just moving on to a question we got then, sort of pre-submitted. In a world with a million different avenues to choose from for potential growth as a business, like how do you decide which to go for? So obviously, yeah, business growth, is that staff, is that equipment, is that space? It's a big question. It could be another webinar. But yeah, there's other
Hey,
factors as
that's it.
well.
It depends.
Yeah.
It's suppose like as a business owner, I'd ask a business owner, why do you do this? What's your
Mm.
goal here? Like,
Yeah.
what's your end game with all of this? And essentially, why do you do it? Like for us, like why do we do it? Is we want to help people attain their clinical and business goals. Like for me as a clinician, I want to help other clinicians improve their business, but ultimately get their patients better. That's what drives me. And most business owners, of course, say, "Oh yeah, I want to get patients better." Great, but what you want to do as a business, what's the model, and how do you want to do it? And we speak to some good people like, I want to be like really on objective assessment, the exercise rehab side of things, and really showing people data-driven rehab. And I suppose it depends on what model you want to run as well, in terms of your business model. Um, there's a multitude of things, but like I say, that we'll come back to is like, what do you want to achieve?
Mm.
What's your goal? Why do you do it? If you
Yeah.
don't know the answer to it as a business owner yourself, like uh, sit down and ask yourself that question. What is your
Mm.
goal? What are you trying to do? Have a roadmap. If you're quite happy where you are and you're ticking
Yeah.
over, everything's doing quite nicely, great, excellent. Your goal might be that you want to just slightly decrease your cost and increase your profit.
Yeah.
Fantastic. If you want to expand and have 5, 6, 7, 8 clinics, great, that's your goal. Okay, right. How can we build a roadmap to get you there? How can we build a pricing strategy that's going to help generate the profit so that you can then reinvest into your business and go from there? So yeah, we sit down. I know Andy does a lot of it as well. Andy, our director, is really, really interested in the business side of things. I know he speaks to a lot of people. Andy Hosgood's a good individual as well with Elevate Your Clinic. Really sit down and help you understand what you're trying to do with your business and what your
Mm.
goals are. I
Yeah.
think using that, you kind of work from there, really.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I say, it's sitting down and trying to ask that question to yourself. But then there is lots of other resources out there, lots of, like I say, people, mentors, bits of things where, like I say, that can help you,
Yeah.
also answer that question for yourself in a way, isn't it? And
Mm.
understand it a little bit more.
I'd say,
Um,
sorry, just to interject as well on the mentor thing. Like, there's lots of mentors and sales gurus and coaches and
yeah.
whichever. I mean, the nice thing about like someone like Andy Hosgood is he is a clinician himself. He
Yeah.
understands it. We've worked with salespeople. They're brilliant. They really, really are brilliant. They don't really understand and grasp the medical side of things, this medical legal side of things. When you say it's not just a B2C relationship or a B2B relationship, it's a bit more than that in our world. Because we have, and for me, my belief is because we have this underpinning of the medical legal side of things, we have to be absolutely on point
Yeah.
with stuff. So if you're going to go and speak to any of the coaches, I'd highly recommend it to somebody who understands the medical field. Andy Hosgood's a great person
Yeah.
for that, and he's always curious, which is great. He's always curious, always asking a question. He always knows the right question to ask as well. So yeah, definitely one to speak to.
Yeah, it's important to be relatable, isn't it? Like I say, is that person to be
Yeah,
relatable to you as well? So, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so just a couple more questions here.
sure.
Is there a specific pathway model to scale using revenue rather than investment?
Yes, I think if I understand that right, is that you don't want to basically buy a new bit of kit. You want to increase your revenue and your margin, that side of
Mm,
things.
yeah,
So yes, there is a way of building scalability with that. And as I mentioned, it's just looking back at your hours.
you just work on
Um,
numbers, isn't it? I guess
yeah,
just yeah, just work out your numbers.
can you get your cost to maintain or go down, and can you increase your
Mm,
margin? That's essentially it. There's other things in terms of scalability. The thing with healthcare is that you are limited on scalability because, like I've mentioned, it's time. It's why
mm,
STEM fields do well in science, technology, engineering, and math because they can design bits of equipment that are infinitely scalable. So
yeah.
we see a lot of people now developing apps and developing things like software aspects. Rehab Guru, good example. It's infinitely scalable. It's anybody can kind of use it. There's more people doing that now. So I suppose part of your business, you could look at selling products in store, like distributing other products within your clinic. Again, comes with a certain amount of risk. The patients are there to get better, not to be sold products to. That's a question to ask.
Mm,
Um, One of the things as well is that, like, could you maximize your hour? So instead of doing 45-minute appointments, 1 hour appointments, and again, it depends on your demographic, depends on your location. London, for example, it's a very, very busy place. They might only need 20 minutes in, out. They might only want
mm,
that.
yeah.
Chiropractors are quite good at that. In and out. And they're charging, so you could charge £60 an hour. Someone else coming for an hour. Half an hour is going to be £40. So if you do two half an hour sessions, £80 turnover there. £80 an hour even. Or if you do every 20-minute sessions, you do £30 every 20 minutes. There's 90 quid. So there's other ways to make things scalable. And I think ultimately, again, it comes back down to as well, what do you want to achieve from your
Yeah.
business? Um,
Yeah, no, good answer. Okay, so yeah, so we do get quite a lot of questions. This one's propped up. So we get a lot of questions generally about sort of just like general pricing for like what an assessment should be, what follow-up session should be, especially around sort of investing in technology, like what's the price of what I should be charging for a shockwave assessment, a treatment, or I'm incorporating it, what should be the price? And it is a tricky one, isn't it?
yeah.
But yeah, it has popped up on the pre-submitted. But yeah, have you got any sort of just feedback on that, takeaway points maybe?
Um, I kind of go back to price
Mhm.
slash value. What are you offering within that price that a patient is going to value? Um, do they know what they're expecting from an initial assessment? I meet with people who do a full 1 hour, 30-minute assessment, but they go through everything. They're not just palpating and doing a couple of little special tests and going, yeah, it's a shoulder tendon, whatever. They do a diagnostic ultrasound scan in that time. They don't charge separately for it. That's just part of their assessment. They do a diagnostic ultrasound scan if they feel it's necessary. You'll
Mhm.
get people that will do dynamometry testing. Because frankly, if you're doing this, the conversation we've been having recently with strength by number stuff, if you're doing objective assessments, if you're doing assessments, if you're not doing it objectively data driven, then you're guessing.
Mhm.
Remember the Oxford scale? You go,
Yeah.
yeah, you're about a 4. It's like, yeah, you feel, yeah, you've got much stronger from last week. Really?
Yeah.
Genius. It's like, well, if I've got a dynamometer, I've got something that can say, yeah, you were producing 20 kilos worth of force. You're now producing 24 kilos worth of force. But left to right,
Mhm.
you were a 15% difference. Now you're an 8% difference. Fantastic. We're seeing progression. Brilliant. And some people offer that in terms of their whole package. They offer this really rounded
Yeah.
package. And it's what people get for their money. And what you value yourself as well. If you don't, I had this conversation, I won't name them, but they were doing Shockwave, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm charging £30 for it as a supplement, but I kind of feel bad asking for 30 quid. Price is wrong then.
Mm.
If you're not comfortable asking for 30 quid, then your price is wrong."
Yeah.
We changed it to £20 supplement. He's getting way more engagement with it because he's now more confident in it.
It's confident with it, yeah.
It's just better. If you don't feel confident asking for that price, then something's up. And I think that comes down to is what you've got to be confident in what you're offering and really, really value what you're offering. Like I say, I see we've met, and I'm sure we all have met really, really good clinicians excellent clinicians that are quite introverted, kind of plod along, and they're trying to figure out things. But then you meet some other people that, with all respect, they're average. They're not as good as some of these people, but they're because they're so confident and so assertive to an extent as well. They really, really value what they do.
Yeah.
They're the ones that you see kind of getting places. And I know those ones that, some people you can go, oh, how have they got there? They're absolutely there.
Mm.
And it's the confidence thing. It's valuing what you do. I mean, average, if people say how much is an hour for a private physiotherapy session, most people say 50 quid.
Mm.
Most people say 50.
Yeah, considerations of demographics as well is a big one. It's a
Yeah.
conversation, isn't it? We have, yeah.
Yeah, there's all sorts, like you say, London prices and Manchester prices are going to be totally
Yeah.
different to Stoke and Wolverhampton and Telford, where I live.
Yeah.
It's different to Wales as well. It's like Scotland's different. Everywhere's different. And you could look at what other businesses are doing,
Yeah.
sure, but to a certain extent, that's what they're doing. It'll give you an idea, but
Mm.
if that doesn't fit you and doesn't fit your model, why copy it?
Yeah.
Granted, don't reinvent the wheel
Yeah.
in certain circumstances, but just because they're doing it doesn't mean that you have to do it. If you value what you do and you're getting people better, people will value that then, and your patients will value that, and it kind of builds from there. The big thing, actually, I've completely forgot. It just jumped into my mind. When you're making investment, or if you're going to open up a new clinic or a new premises, whatever it might be, you have to get comfortable with sitting in a bit of negative for a while
Hmm.
and potentially working at a loss, maybe for 12 months, maybe even for 2
Yeah.
years. One of the keys is consistency. You have to be consistent. You just have to be. If you kind of ebb and flow into things, it just won't generate any traction whatsoever, any momentum. It's something that we learn and we're learning all the time. We're restricted by time at our end, but from what we do, but if you're consistent and you're consistently positive and you consistently put these things out, people will start to value what you do. They'll start to see what you do and resonate and what you do. And ultimately, if you're positive on the market and you're positive in your area, if you're a net positive comes to you and everything's hunky dory and everything goes hell, Um, but yeah, I think it's if you're going to make an investment, it's being comfortable with it might not make you money for 12 months, 18 months. But if you're consistent and you've done your work and you've done your diligence and you're confident in it
Mhm.
and you've priced it right, do it. But also don't be afraid to change something if it isn't working.
Yeah. No, like that consistency is key. Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
what is it? Preparation. Victory loves preparation. Is it something like that?
Okay, yeah, I like
Yeah.
that one. That's a little bit
Um,
fun.
there's a few. Oh, there's loads. I'm going to see if how many more cliches and get in the next 5 minutes.
Right, okay, so just checking, no sort of open questions, which is fine, no probs. I see we've got a lot of people sort of listening back on this, which is great. So yeah, so just to round up really then, so sort of, yeah, final point from me then. So I guess, what would you say, Dom, are the first steps now, sort of for a therapy business that they should take away from this webinar, just to start looking or improving their ROI?
First step is if you don't know or you're unsure, understand how much is going out of your business, what the running costs of your business are per year, per month, per week, per day, per hour, and if you've got multiple rooms, per room, per hour. And
Yeah,
once you know what that cost is, then you kind of work from there. That would be the first step. If you're not familiar with that, get familiar with it and keep a
yeah,
finger on the pulse
yeah,
with
get it
it
down,
as
get the
well.
numbers down.
Yeah, really, really understand it. It doesn't have to be an exact science. It's just estimated ballparks. We can take people through that if you want. We have, like I
Mhm.
say, we have our own ROI calculator that we can just work through. It'll take honestly half an hour, not even
Yeah,
that. And we can run people through it and give you a good idea of how it would work, and how it could work for you. And I think if you already know that, it's then looking at, okay, what is your goal? Why are you doing what you're doing? Where do you want it to go? Um, what are you wanting to achieve in 2 years, 3 years, 10 years, whatever it is? And then what investments, if any, would you need to make to be able to achieve and attain that?
yeah,
And again, we're here to help you. It doesn't necessarily have to be about our products. We're quite au fait with a lot of the products out there that we don't distribute. And we're always happy, we're always on hand to advice. Advice is free, isn't it? So, we're always happy to point people in the right direction if needs be.
Yeah, exactly that. Like I say, we're here to help. Like I say, we're putting on these sessions to help you guys, but please get in touch with us directly as well. We're more than happy to spend more time going through anything, or like I say, anything further on what we've discussed today. So yes, please do. If you've got any further questions, get in touch. So yeah, that just rounds about the webinar up then. So thank you everyone for joining us, or thank you for listening back on the recording. And thank you, Dom, for presenting for us, providing such a good insight on this topic. I know that a lot of people definitely take value from it. Yes, following this, I'll send out recording to everyone who has registered, a survey as well. So please pop in some feedback. We do want to develop on educational sessions like this. So please let us know what we can provide for you to help you guys. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Thanks, Dom, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.